I'm Dr. David Warren. I'm 60 years old now, and after more than 3 decades working with patients over 50, I've realized something most of us never really think about. Our eyes don't get old overnight. They quietly send out little signals for help, and we simply overlook them. Have you ever felt something like that? Maybe one evening you're driving and suddenly the street lights seem harsher than usual. Or one morning you open the newspaper and realize you have to hold it farther away just to read the print. And sometimes just sitting in a slightly dim room makes everything turn blurry, like you're looking through a thin layer of fog. Most people think, well, that's just aging. But after looking into thousands of pairs of eyes over the years, I can tell you, there's always more to the story. Vitamin A is the guide that helps light find its way. Every time you look at something, your spouse's smile or a tiny line of text on your phone, your eyes are converting light into electrical signals that travel straight to your brain. That little miracle happens thousands of times a day. But when you're low on vitamin A, that miracle starts slowing down. Light doesn't convert as smoothly as it used to. Things look blurrier, you become more sensitive to glare, and walking in the dark starts to feel less like moving through your home and more like navigating unfamiliar territory. I remember a patient named Richard, 72 years old. He told me that every night he had to feel his way down the stairs like someone walking through a dark forest. But after we adjusted his vitamin A levels, everything sharpened. He looked at me and said, "Doctor, I swear it feels like I've got the eyes I had at 40. Your eyes want to heal. They're trying every single day. They just need the right raw materials to do it." There's something that surprises a lot of my patients when I explain it, and it might surprise you too. Many of them tell me, as doctor, I eat vegetables every single day. I eat carrots, sweet potatoes, spinach. So why are my eyes still blurry? And I have to gently tell them something most people over 50 have never heard. Our bodies change with age. Not just the wrinkles or the gray hair, but deep inside, where our digestion and metabolism work. As we get older, the body becomes less efficient at converting beta-carotene from vegetables into active vitamin A, the kind your eyes actually use. In fact, that conversion can slow down by 50% or more. I want you to picture this. It's like trying to cook an important meal, but the stove isn't hot enough anymore. No matter how much food you put in the pan, it just won't cook properly. That's what happens inside an aging body. You can eat tons of vegetables rich in beta-carotene, but if your internal stove isn't strong enough, your eyes still end up deficient. I remember Helen, a 68-year-old patient who ate healthier than most people I know. She told me, "I never go a day without my greens." Yet she struggled with light sensitivity and letters that seemed to dance on the page. When we tested her, her vitamin A levels were still low. The problem wasn't her diet, it was her ability to convert and absorb what she was eating. And once people finally understand this, they stop blaming themselves. They finally realize the issue isn't how much they eat, but how well their body can transform those nutrients into something their eyes can actually use. And that changes everything. Because once you know the real problem, you can finally help your eyes in the right way. There's something I wish more people really understood. Your eyes don't just need light to see, they need protection. And when I say protection, I'm talking about vitamin C. Most folks think of vitamin C only as the cold and flu vitamin. But when it comes to your eyes, its role goes far deeper than that. Your lens, the clear structure that focuses light, actually holds some of the highest concentrations of vitamin C in your entire body. That's not a coincidence. It's because every day your eyes are bombarded with stress. Bright lights, UV rays, screens, pollution, even emotional stress. All these things create oxidative damage, almost like tiny sparks hitting delicate tissue. Vitamin C is the shield that absorbs those sparks before they burn. I remember one of my patients, Rose, 73 years old. She told me that every morning when she looked out the window, the sunlight had a bright halo around it. Sometimes it even hurt. Everything looked slightly cloudy, almost as if she were looking through a smudged glass. And when we checked her vitamin levels, it made perfect sense. Her vitamin C was extremely low. After adding more vitamin C to her diet, simple things like kiwi, berries, fresh peppers, she came back a few weeks later and said, "Doctor, the light doesn't scare me anymore." Vitamin C doesn't just clear up your vision. It strengthens the tiny capillaries that deliver oxygen and nutrients to your eyes. It helps the lens stay clear. It reduces oxidative stress before it becomes long-term damage. And the best part? Vitamin C isn't complicated. It's in everyday foods you can easily add to your meals. Your eyes don't just need to see, they need to be protected. And vitamin C is one of the simplest, most powerful ways to do that. There's something I think about often whenever I meet my older patients. Why have so many of us become so dependent on those little bottles of eye drops? People in their 60s, 70s, even 80s tell me the same thing over and over. Doctor, when my eyes feel dry, I use drops. When they burn, I use drops. When my vision gets blurry at night, I use drops. And then they ask me why nothing ever truly gets better. The truth is simple. Eye drops are like wiping a wet floor while the ceiling is still leaking. They soothe the discomfort, yes, but they don't fix the cause. Dry eyes don't appear out of nowhere. Blurry vision doesn't happen for no reason. Those are signals from deeper inside. The cells are tired, inflamed, or missing the nutrients they need. I remember a patient named Gerald, 75 years old. Every time he came to see me, he had 3 or 4 different bottles of eye drops tucked in his shirt pocket. He'd been using them for almost a decade, but his eyes were still red, still irritated, still blurry at night. When I asked him when he first started using drops, he said, "When I was 65, and ever since then, I just keep switching to stronger ones." I looked at him and said gently, "Gerald, you're treating the symptoms, not the source. It's like putting a bandage on a leaking pipe. Your eyes don't need just temporary moisture. They need nourishment. They need vitamin A to rebuild the surface. They need vitamin C to protect the lens. They need proper blood flow to feed the retina. Eye drops can help you get through the moment, but they can't rebuild what's breaking down inside. And the moment people understand that, they finally start giving their eyes the care they've been asking for all along. There's something fascinating that most people don't know, and it often surprises my patients when I explain it. Vitamin A doesn't work alone. It actually needs a partner, a kind of supporting actor, to do its job properly. And that partner is zinc. I often tell my patients, vitamin A is the key that opens the door to clear vision. But without zinc, the door stays locked. You may have seen people who take vitamin A, eat nutritious foods, even follow all the right steps, yet their eyes are still dry, still blurry, still sensitive to light. And they wonder, why isn't this working? The reason is simple. Vitamin A can't reach the retina without zinc. It's like having all the bricks you need to build a house, but no workers to place them where they belong. I remember a patient named Michael, 70 years old. He took cod liver oil every morning for a whole year. He did everything by the book, but his eyes were still irritated, and driving at night became almost impossible because of the glare. When we ran his tests, the answer became crystal clear. He was severely zinc deficient. Once we adjusted his diet, adding pumpkin seeds, chickpeas, and a little lean beef, things began to change. 6 weeks later, he came back with a smile I won't forget. He said, "Doctor, I drove home last night and realized I wasn't squinting anymore." That wasn't magic. That was biology. When zinc and vitamin A hold hands, the retina finally gets what it needs to function the way it's supposed to. Your eyes don't just need nutrients, they need the right combination of nutrients working together. There's something I believe many of us, especially those of us in our 60s and 70s, were never prepared for. Blue light. Not sunlight, not the bright days we grew up with, but the light coming from the things we hold in our hands every single day. Our phones, our tablets, our computers, our TVs. I tell my patients that blue light is like invisible heat. You can't feel it burning, but it's wearing your eyes down, slowly and quietly. After age 60, the natural protective layers of the eye become thinner. The retina becomes more fragile, and blue light can create oxidative stress twice as powerful as it does in younger eyes. That means the very cells that help you read, recognize faces, or drive at night are being overwhelmed day after day. I remember a patient named Linda, 69 years old. She loved watching YouTube videos before bed, especially the ones her grandkids sent her, but her eyes were constantly irritated. She would wake up feeling like there was sand under her eyelids and bright lights felt harsh and painful. When I asked how long she spent in front of screens at night, she laughed and said, "Oh, probably 2 hours every evening." There's nothing wrong with wanting to stay connected, but her eyes were signaling for help, and she didn't realize it. As we age, we naturally produce less lutein, less zeaxanthin, fewer antioxidants. That means blue light doesn't just make us tired, it physically damages retinal cells, contributing to dryness, inflammation, poor night vision, and even early macular degeneration. I often tell my older patients, it's not that your eyes are weak, it's that they're fighting this modern world without armor. And once you finally understand the silent impact of blue light, you begin to see why your eyes feel the way they do and what they've been trying to tell you all along. There's something I always want my patients over 50 to truly understand. Your eyes don't repair themselves during the day. They repair themselves at night. Nighttime is when the retina, the cornea, and the delicate epithelial layers begin their night shift. It's the only time they can rebuild what daylight breaks down. But just like any repair team, they can only work if they have the right materials. I want you to imagine this. Every night, your eyes need a supply room filled with vitamin A, vitamin C, zinc, lutein, healthy fats, and oxygen. These are the bricks, the nails, the wooden beams the eyes use to rebuild themselves. But when your body's low on these nutrients, which is incredibly common after age 60, the repair crew shows up with empty hands. And that's why you wake up with tired eyes, dryness, mild blurriness, light sensitivity, or that strange gritty feeling. People think it's age, but most of the time, it's simply incomplete nighttime repair. I remember a patient named Eleanor, 74 years old. She asked me, "Doctor, I sleep enough, so why do my eyes feel exhausted every morning?" When we looked at her diet and her routines, the reason was clear. Every night her eyes tried to repair, but they didn't have the raw materials to do the job. After adding retinol-rich foods, natural vitamin C, some lutein, and healthy fats to her meals, she came back 3 weeks later and said, "For the first time in years, and I woke up and everything looks sharp. Your eyes are always trying to heal. They have never given up on you. They just need what they've been missing." There's something many people in our generation have been misled about for decades. We were taught to fear fat. Back in the 80s and 90s, everything was low fat, fat-free, cholesterol-free, and many of my patients in their 60s and 70s followed those rules faithfully for half a lifetime. But here's the truth no one told them. Your eyes need healthy fats to survive. The retina, the very place where light turns into vision, is built from special types of fats. The photoreceptor cells are wrapped in lipid layers, and vitamin A, the active retinol your eyes rely on, is fat-soluble. It cannot be absorbed or used properly without dietary fat. That means if you spent 10, 20, even 30 years avoiding butter, egg yolks, olive oil, avocados, and fatty fish, your eyes may have been starving for the very nutrients they needed. I often ask my patients to imagine vitamin A as a small flame. Healthy fat is the oil that keeps the flame burning. Without the oil, the flame can't glow, no matter how much fuel you add. I remember Patrick, 67 years old. He struggled with nighttime vision, and everything looked slightly dim. He assumed it was age, but when we reviewed his diet, I noticed he had been eating fat-free meals for nearly 2 decades. No egg yolks, no butter, very little fish. When I gently explained that his eyes were fat-starved, he shook his head and said, "I thought I was doing the right thing." But once he added just a few simple things, eggs, grass-fed butter, cod liver oil, the change came quickly. A few weeks later, he told me, "Doctor, it feels like someone wiped away a layer of fog. Your eyes don't fight fat, they depend on it. And when you give them back the healthy fats they've been missing, your vision can come back to life in ways you may not expect." There's something I often tell my older patients, though not everyone believes it at first. Deep sleep is one of the most powerful medicines for your eyes. Not vitamins, not eye drops, not fancy gadgets, but sleep, real restorative sleep. Without deep sleep, there is no repair. Without repair, the eyes dry out, tire easily, and lose clarity little by little. Your retina, the delicate layer that allows you to see the world, does its rebuilding at night, not during a nap, not during restless, broken sleep, but during long, uninterrupted rest. Yet so many people over 60 sleep less than 6 hours a night. And then they come to me with the same complaints: heavy eyes in the morning, burning or stinging sensations, difficulty focusing, sensitivity to light. They think it's just age, but most of the time, it's simply repair that never got the chance to happen. I remember Marlene, 71 years old. She slept 4 or 5 hours a night because she stayed up watching news or talking to her kids in different time zones. Every appointment, she'd rub her eyes and say, "It always feels like there's grit in my eyes when I wake up." When we worked on improving her sleep, limiting screens an hour before bed, no coffee after mid-afternoon, and adding a little magnesium, the change was remarkable. She came back and said, "Doctor, for the first time in years, my eyes didn't feel tired when I woke up." Sleep isn't just rest. It's restoration. It's the nightly maintenance shift your eyes rely on. And the peace your eyes feel in the morning starts with the peace you give them at night. There's something that leaves many of my older patients confused, even a little frustrated. They eat well. They choose healthy foods. They take their vitamins. And yet, their eyes, their energy, their skin still don't improve. Then they look at me and ask, "Doctor, what am I doing wrong?" And most of the time, the answer is gentle and simple. You're not doing anything wrong. Your body has changed. After age 60, the digestive system doesn't work the way it used to. Your stomach produces less acid. Your pancreas releases fewer enzymes. Your intestinal lining becomes thinner and less efficient. So even if you're eating all the right foods, greens, carrots, fruit, supplements, your body simply can't absorb those nutrients the way it once did. I remember a patient named John, 76 years old. He was incredibly disciplined. He drank green smoothies, ate fresh vegetables, avoided junk food, even took multivitamins. But his night vision was getting worse, and his eyes were always dry. When we ran his tests, both his vitamin A and vitamin C levels were low. He stared at me in disbelief and said, "Then where on earth did all that food go?" I explained to him that an aging digestive system is like fertile soil that has slowly dried out. It doesn't hold nutrients the way it once did, not because you're doing anything wrong, but because your body is different now. Once we added gentle digestive enzymes, healthy fats to improve vitamin A absorption, fresh fruits for natural vitamin C, and fewer processed foods. 5 weeks later, he returned with a smile and said, "For the first time in a long time, I read at night without straining." Your body wants to heal. It's trying every day. Sometimes it just needs a little help, not by eating more, but by helping it absorb what you're already giving it. There's something I believe everyone over 60 should know. Your eyes don't just need vitamins to see, they need collagen to stay strong. And collagen, the very structure that supports your lens, your cornea, and the tiny capillaries feeding your retina, cannot be built without vitamin C. I often tell my patients, vitamin C is the architect. Collagen is the building material. Without the architect, nothing gets built. Your eyes are fed by microscopic capillaries, so small that if you magnified them, they would look like delicate threads carrying life into every corner of your vision. But when these capillaries weaken, when they get stiff, leak, or lose their elasticity, your vision suffers long before you feel anything painful. I remember a patient named Bernard, 73 years old. He complained about tiny blurry spots when looking at a white wall, and sometimes everything looked like it had a thin haze over it. His test didn't show major damage, but his retinal capillaries were noticeably weak. Not broken, just fragile. When I asked about his diet, it all made sense. He rarely ate fresh fruit, and most of his meals were heavily cooked, meaning most of the vitamin C had been destroyed by heat. I explained that vitamin C doesn't just fight oxidation. It keeps the capillaries that feed your eyes strong, flexible, and able to deliver oxygen. When those tiny vessels begin to fail, your vision dims slowly, silently, long before a doctor ever sees a major problem. After adding kiwi, berries, and red bell peppers to his meals, Bernard came back 4 weeks later and said, "Doctor, those blurry spots, they're almost gone." That's the power of nourishing your capillaries. When the little rivers feeding your eyes grow strong, the entire landscape of your vision becomes clear again. There's something truly remarkable about the human eye. It has the ability to renew itself every single day. While you sleep, the retinal epithelium, that thin but essential protective layer, quietly works to rebuild and refresh itself. It's like a tiny window being polished each night so the world looks clear again in the morning. But here's the catch: that renewal cannot happen without one crucial ingredient: vitamin A. People often think of vitamin A as just another nutrient, but it's not. It's the manager of the entire rebuilding process. Without enough of it, new cells aren't formed properly, and the old cells die faster than they can be replaced. And that's when the symptoms begin. Dry eyes, that scratchy, gritty feeling, slight morning blur, sensitivity to light, poor night vision. I remember a patient named Dorothy, 78 years old, a woman who loved reading more than anything. She told me her favorite books had become harder to enjoy because the letters seemed to shimmer and move. She had to blink every few seconds just to refocus. When I examined her eyes, there was no major disease, but her epithelial layer was thin and uneven, classic signs of long-term vitamin A deficiency. When I explained this to her, she sighed and said, "Doctor, I never realized my eyes needed vitamins like that." So we started small. A little bit of liver once a week, one egg yolk every morning, some grass-fed butter, more leafy greens in her dinners. Nothing extreme, just giving her eyes the raw materials they'd been missing. A few weeks later, she returned, smiling with a brightness I hadn't seen in a while. She said, "I read 3 chapters last night, and I didn't have to blink every other sentence." Your eyes don't age the way people think. They simply need their protective layer restored. And vitamin A is the key that makes that renewal possible. There's something I wish every person over 60 could understand. Sometimes your eyes don't weaken because of age. They weaken because of silent inflammation. Not the kind that makes your eyes red or painful, not something dramatic or obvious, but a slow, quiet erosion caused by blue light, stress, lack of sleep, processed foods, and the everyday strain of modern life. It's like tiny drops of water falling on a rock. You don't notice the change in a day, but after years, the rock is carved away. I remember a patient named Larry, 70 years old. He told me his vision wasn't dramatically worse. It just faded a little each year, like a dimmer switch being slowly turned down. When I examined him, there was no major disease, but the signs of chronic inflammation were unmistakable. His retinal cells were working harder than they should, and his antioxidant defenses were worn thin. I said to him, "Larry, your eyes aren't failing. They're tired, and they need allies. Those allies are the natural antioxidants found in foods: vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, lutein, and zeaxanthin. When your body has enough of these, your eyes are protected from the inside out. Blue light does less damage. Photoreceptor cells stay alive longer. The lens stays clear. Retinal inflammation drops. Night vision improves. Dryness becomes less frequent. And the beautiful part is, these nutrients aren't rare. They're in foods you can easily add to your meals: egg yolks, kale, spinach, berries, peppers, grass-fed butter, cod liver oil, sunflower seeds. After 2 months of eating this way, Larry returned and said something I will never forget. "Doctor, I don't know when it happened, but I don't squint at my morning newspaper anymore." Your eyes haven't given up on you. They've just been waiting for you to give them the nourishment they've quietly needed for years. There's something I've noticed more and more throughout my years working with older patients. Your eyes aren't just shaped by age. They're shaped by the foods you eat every single day. We live in a time when processed foods, canned meals, refined oils, and heat-and-eat dinners are everywhere. They're convenient, they're quick, but they come at a cost your eyes often pay for. I tell my patients, the farther your food gets from nature, the farther your eyes get from clarity. Refined oils like soybean, canola, And corn oil, the ones found in almost every American kitchen, create low-grade inflammation throughout the body. And the eyes feel it first: more dryness, more redness, more sensitivity to light. Canned and packaged foods, most of them have lost nearly all their natural vitamin A, vitamin C, and antioxidants by the time they reach your plate. I remember a patient named Nora, 66 years old. She lived alone and often relied on canned meals because they were easier. But her eyes were always dry, irritated, and she told me she saw a light haze every evening, especially after dinner. When we looked at her diet, the pattern was clear. Her body wasn't receiving the nutrients her eyes needed, not even close. So I asked her to try something simple: replace refined oils with extra virgin olive oil, swap a few canned meals for fresh vegetables a couple of times a week, add an egg yolk or a bit of fatty fish to her breakfast. Less than a month later, she came back and said, "Doctor, my eyes aren't red anymore, and I can read my prayer book at night without rubbing my eyes." That didn't happen by luck. It happened because she changed the fuel her eyes were running on. When you return to real, whole foods, foods that still look like they came from the earth, your eyes respond with gratitude. Less inflammation, less dryness, less strain, and far more clarity. Your eyes were designed for nature, and when you give them back what nature intended, they repay you in the most beautiful way, with clearer, brighter vision. There's something I always remind my patients over 50. Your body never loses its ability to heal. Sometimes it just runs out of the materials it needs. And your eyes are no different. When I talk about vitamin A, vitamin C, zinc, and healthy fats, people often think they're just small nutrients. But when they come together, they create a full restoration system, a toolkit your retina uses every single night to repair, rebuild, and regain clarity. I often ask my patients to picture the retina like an old painting. Time, light, stress, and aging slowly dull its colors and scratch its surface. But when you bring in the right tools, cleansers, brushes, protective coatings, the painting can regain its depth and brilliance. That's exactly what happens when your eyes finally get the nutrients they've been missing. The body begins to repair damaged cells, renew the epithelial layers, reduce inflammation, improve light sensitivity, sharpen night vision, ease dryness and strain. I remember Samuel, 79 years old. He had accepted that his night vision was gone for good. He avoided driving in the evening and kept adding more lights around the house just to feel safe. But when we started a simple routine: cod liver oil in the morning, some eggs and butter, leafy greens each day, and pumpkin seeds for zinc, things began to shift. 2 months later, he walked into my office smiling and said, "Doctor, I read the house numbers when I drove home last night. I can't remember the last time I could do that." His retina wasn't failing. It was finally being fed. Your eyes aren't broken. They're waiting for the raw materials that allow them to rebuild, strengthen, and shine again. And the beautiful part is that healing can begin with the very next meal you choose. If you've stayed with me all the way to this moment, I want you to pause, take a slow, gentle breath, and look back at the journey we've just shared together. We've talked about vitamin A, the key that helps your eyes turn light into vision. We've talked about vitamin C, the antioxidant shield that protects your lens and those fragile little capillaries. We touched on zinc, healthy fats, deep sleep, the aging digestive system, all of it forming one bigger picture. Your eyes can recover, can become clearer, and can feel younger. Literally. And I hope you realize something important. Blurry vision, dryness, light sensitivity, trouble seeing at night. These are not the destiny of getting older. They're simply your body whispering that it's missing the raw materials it needs. I've witnessed stories more beautiful than medicine itself. The 79-year-old man who read house numbers again at night. The 82-year-old woman who finally saw her daughter smile clearly, and patients who thought they'd live with dry eyes forever, now feeling refreshed, as if their eyes were watered back to life. And I want you to understand this. The next story could be yours, but it only happens when you start. Not with something big, with something small, a single egg yolk in the morning, a spoonful of cod liver oil, an hour away from screens before bed, a plate filled with leafy greens, a glass of water instead of soda. These small choices, repeated day after day, can rewrite the future of your vision. If this video touched you in any way, I'd like to ask two simple things. Hit the like button so I know you're walking this journey with me, and leave a comment sharing what you want to improve about your eyes. Who knows? Your story might be the one that inspires someone who's losing hope. Thank you for being here with me, and let today be the day you begin the healing journey for your eyes.